I was holding a leaking trash bag when she told me she couldn't hug me anymore. No big fight. No tears. Just those exact words, thrown out like eggshells into the bin I was gripping. She said it casually, too, like she was reading the weather. I can't hug you anymore, Curtis. It feels off. Off. Like a shirt that shrunk in the dryer. Like milk that's one day past its expiration. I stood there frozen, gripping the bag while coffee grounds and a used napkin slid out the bottom and onto my foot. I looked at her. She didn't look back. Instead, she walked upstairs. That was it. That was the moment. And no one prepares you for that moment. No marriage counselor. No book. No dumb inspirational quote. You don't expect to hear it in the middle of taking out the garbage. You expect betrayal to scream. You expect it to bleed or burn. But mine came in silence, standing in a puddle of something sticky and smelling like sour apples. Later that night, she brought down her laundry but didn't hand it to me like usual. She just dumped it on the couch. I watched her walk away, sockless, phone in hand, grinning at her screen. Not at me. Never at me. So I didn't fold the laundry. I didn't take the trash out. I didn't check if she needed anything for her morning smoothie. I just sat there, surrounded by things I used to do for a woman who used to touch me. And I knew something had changed. Not just the marriage. Me. I used to hold doors for her when her hands were full. That night, I locked mine behind me when I went for a walk and didn't text her that I was safe. And maybe that's petty. Maybe it's small. But when you've spent years being invisible, even your silence feels like a megaphone. Here's where it gets worse. The next morning, I walked past her open laptop in the kitchen. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced at the screen like any normal person would. She'd forgotten to close her messaging app. There were 5 unread messages. All from the same name. Sean. No last name. No emojis. Just, was last night a mistake? You didn't say much before you left. Is he catching on? You're quiet. That makes me nervous. I miss how you kiss me when you lie. I sat down. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just slowly. Because everything in my body deflated at once. She came down the stairs 2 minutes later like nothing was wrong. Smiling. Lip gloss. Hair curled. She asked if I could drive her to work. She said her car was acting weird again. I nodded. I drove her. I didn't say a word. But I knew that would be the last favor she ever got from me. Because that trash bag moment, it wasn't just the end of hugs. It was the last time I carried anything for her, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. The drive to her office was only 18 minutes, but it felt like dragging a corpse uphill. She hummed softly the whole way. Not a care in the world. Not a thought about what I might have seen on that laptop screen. I kept both hands on the wheel. I didn't flinch when she reached for the volume knob and turned on that same playlist she always uses to mask tension. I just let the songs play. Let the lies drip like condensation down the windshield. When she stepped out of the car, she didn't say goodbye. She just looked at her phone, smiled, and closed the door behind her like she was slipping into another life. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't call in sick. I didn't call in at all. I went back home, sat in the driveway for half an hour, and stared at her smoothie glass still sitting on the porch railing. The one she never washed, the one with her lipstick stain still faintly on the rim. She always asked me to clean it. I always did. Not this time. I went inside. The house was so quiet it made me paranoid. Like the walls knew something I didn't. Like the fridge, the curtains, the couch cushions had been keeping secrets with her. I went upstairs, not even sure what I was looking for. I wasn't proud of it, but curiosity, when mixed with betrayal, turns into something else. Something obsessive. I opened drawers. I pulled back closet doors. I looked under our bed and even beneath the bathroom sink. What was I expecting? A hidden journal? Love letters? A souvenir from Sean? What I found was worse. Her gym bag. Still zipped shut. Still damp. Inside, wrapped in a change of clothes and tucked next to a granola bar, was a prepaid phone. Cheap. Disposable. Fully charged. I powered it on with trembling fingers. One wallpaper image, him and her, both wearing sunglasses, kissing on the beach. Not a beach I recognized. Not a day she ever told me about. There were 3 messages unread. Still on for tonight? You're quiet again. Are you getting cold feet? You said he's weak. Just say the word. Weak. That one word stuck to me like mold in my lungs. That's how she described me? After everything? She told some guy, some stranger with a prepaid number and sand in his teeth, that I was weak? And she wasn't wrong. I guess. Because even then, Even with proof in my hands and the filth of her secret life under my roof, I didn't rage. I didn't smash the phone. I didn't call her at work or drive back and confront her in front of her precious clients. No, I did what I always do. I cleaned. I cleaned the kitchen, the bathroom. I folded the laundry she'd dumped on the couch. But I left that smoothie glass exactly where it was, a tiny rebellion. Her fingerprints still on the rim. Her lipstick smudged like guilt. And then I sat on the floor in the hallway. For hours. Not crying. Just shrinking. Collapsing into the kind of silence you can't hear, but you feel. I didn't know what the next step would be. I just knew the man she thought was too weak was about to disappear from her life in a way that would hurt her more than she ever expected. But first, I needed to see one thing with my own eyes. I needed to know if this Sean, this whisper behind the curtain, was real. And if he was, I needed to see the way she looked at him. So that night, I followed her. And what I witnessed changed everything. I knew where she'd be before she even left the house. I watched her from the window. The way she double-checked her makeup in the mirror, spritzed that perfume I hadn't smelled in months, and typed a message so slowly it had to be for someone who mattered more than I ever did. She wore the green dress. The one I told her made her look like a whisper you couldn't forget. She never wore it for me anymore. Said it felt too tight. But there she was, spinning once in the hallway mirror like she was dancing for a ghost I'd never met. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. I waited exactly 4 minutes before I followed. I didn't even change clothes. I just grabbed my keys, left the lights off, and tailed her car from 2 blocks behind. She always said I drove like a grandpa. That night, I was invisible. I knew every turn she'd take before she made it. Muscle memory. Years of driving to family dinners, to birthday brunches, to that one bed and breakfast we both pretended to enjoy. But she didn't go anywhere we'd ever been. She pulled into a parking lot behind a rundown bar called Red Line, a place I only knew because one of my coworkers once said it was where married people pretend they're single. I parked across the street, lights off, engine humming low. She stepped out, smoothed her dress, looked around, and smiled. That smile. I hadn't seen it in over a year. It wasn't a polite smile. It was the kind that curled from deep inside the gut. It had weight, intention, warmth. She wasn't alone for long. He pulled up in a sleek silver SUV. He was younger than I expected. Fit. Confident. The kind of guy who doesn't check his reflection before exiting the car because he knows he'll still look good. They hugged long. Too long. Then she grabbed his hand like it was second nature, and they disappeared into the bar together. I stayed in the car. And for the next 53 minutes, I watched that building like it was on fire. I imagined the conversations. The jokes she used to save just for me. The way she'd order something she shouldn't and act surprised when he tasted it off her fork. I imagined her hand on his knee, her laugh spilling out too easily, the sparkle in her eyes she'd stolen from me and given to a stranger. But what wrecked me most wasn't the imagining. It was what happened when they came back out. She was leaning on his chest like she'd never known another heartbeat. And he kissed her forehead. It wasn't a lustful thing. It wasn't sneaky. It was tender. Familiar. It said, "You're mine." And she let him. Then she said something. I couldn't hear it, but she said it with her whole face. And he laughed. Loud. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in our house since before the pandemic. I sank deeper into the seat. My hands went numb. I don't know why I stayed. Maybe to torture myself. Maybe because I still hoped, against all logic, that she'd suddenly look across the street and realize what she was destroying. That she'd run back to me and say, "I was wrong. You were right. I miss us." But she didn't. She kissed him again, on the mouth this time. Then they got in his car and drove off together. I didn't follow. I just sat there until the bar lights flickered off and the street emptied. Until my stomach growled from skipping dinner. Until the inside of the car smelled like sweat and something burning inside me. When I got home, I didn't sleep. I laid on the floor beside the bed, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stand to be at the same height as her pillow anymore. She came back at 1:44 a.m. Didn't turn on the lights. Didn't check to see if I was awake. Just climbed into bed and let out a soft sigh like she'd had the perfect night. And that's when I knew. This wasn't an affair. This was a replacement. And I was the man she hadn't figured out how to discard yet. But that was going to change. Because tomorrow, she'd wake up to a version of me she'd never met. The next morning, I woke up before her, or maybe I never really fell asleep. It was hard to tell. My eyes were open, but my thoughts were like static. The kind that buzzes between radio stations. Meaningless noise hiding something you don't want to hear. She rolled over once in bed and mumbled something about the air conditioner being too cold. I stared at the ceiling. I could smell his cologne on her hair from the other side of the room. Or maybe I imagined it. Maybe my brain was playing tricks on me now, feeding me poison I couldn't spit out. I got up, went downstairs, made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee, just like she liked it. I even cut the toast diagonally like she always asked. I don't know why I did it. Maybe out of habit. Maybe out of some last pathetic instinct to prove I still could. She came down in her robe, yawning, rubbing her neck like she was recovering from a deep and peaceful sleep. "Wow," she said, smiling. "You're up early." I didn't respond. Just slid her plate in front of her and poured coffee into the mug that said, "Best wife ever." She noticed the mug. Froze. Just for a second. Then she laughed, that fake little snort she does when she's pretending everything's fine. I sat across from her and watched her eat. I didn't touch my food. I didn't even blink much. I just watched her chew, sip, and scroll her phone, all while acting like she hadn't been kissing another man against his car door just hours earlier. At one point, she looked up and asked, "Is something wrong?" I wanted to say, "You're wearing betrayal on your face, and I'm watching it move every time you smile." Instead, I said, "No." She left for work 20 minutes later, kissed me on the cheek, just like nothing was wrong. But this time I didn't flinch. I didn't freeze. I let her kiss me because I wanted her to believe I hadn't seen a thing. That's when I started planning. Not revenge. Not some movie-level plot to ruin her life. That's not me. I'm not dangerous. I'm not clever. But I am quiet. And quiet people can move through a house like ghosts. I began taking photos. Of receipts. Of phone records. Of the spare keys she didn't know I found taped behind her makeup drawer. I started collecting tiny truths, enough to make a storm when the time came. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet. All I knew was this. She wasn't going to rewrite the story and make me the villain when it all fell apart. But something shifted in her that week. She started being nice. Too nice. She asked me how my day was. Rubbed my shoulders while we watched TV. Brought me coffee during work calls. Wore perfume to bed. And I knew she suspected something was off. Maybe I'd left a breadcrumb I didn't mean to. Maybe she just felt it in the silence between us, that pregnant pause that follows a lie too big to live quietly forever. And then came the mistake. On Thursday night, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't go looking for it. I didn't snoop. I just looked over and saw the message. Bold, unforgiving text across the screen. "He doesn't know, right? You promised. I'm not getting dragged into this, Lainey." Lainey. She hadn't been called that in our house in over a year. That was my name for her. And he had stolen it too. I stared at that screen until it dimmed. I didn't move. I didn't take a screenshot. I didn't forward it to myself. I didn't need to. Because that was the moment I realized she had lied to both of us. She wasn't just replacing me. She was stringing him along too. The man she called Sean? He didn't know she was still sleeping in my bed. He didn't know she made me breakfast last weekend or watched documentaries with me just to relax. He didn't know she cried last Tuesday when she saw a photo of her late dad and leaned on my shoulder for comfort, not his. And now I had something neither of them knew. I had leverage. But more than that, I had a reason to walk away with my head up and leave them to destroy each other without lifting a finger. It was Saturday morning when it finally cracked. Not the affair. Not the silence. Me. It happened at the grocery store of all places, somewhere I'd walked 100 times, where I knew the layout like the back of my hand. I used to enjoy going. I'd listen to podcasts, push the cart like a dad in a sitcom, buy her oat milk even though she never finished it, pick out the salad mix she said made her feel clean inside. Every aisle was a ritual. A private marriage routine no one saw but us. But that morning, I walked past the cereal section and saw a man helping his wife read the ingredients on the back of a box. She was holding his elbow, laughing, arguing about sugar content. They looked like two people building something invisible between them. I stood there staring, holding a box of Triscuits in one hand and a grocery list in the other. The list had been written by Delaney, in that half-cursive, half-print handwriting she only used when she wasn't thinking. I'd read it 100 times without really seeing it. But this time, one line hit me like a punch. Get the good dark chocolate. You know which one, winky face. The wink. The casual familiarity. The assumption that I'd smile at her little note. Like nothing was broken. like she hadn't thrown our marriage into a ditch and handed the wheel to someone else. I put the box of Triscuits back, walked out of the store, left the cart in the middle of aisle 7, sat in my car, and stared at the steering wheel for 45 minutes. And for the first time in over a decade, I let myself feel angry. Not loud anger. Not the kind you yell or throw. The kind that simmers behind the eyes. That makes your hands clench without you realizing. That builds a wall between who you were and who you're about to become. I drove home empty-handed. And I didn't apologize. She was on the couch when I got back, legs curled up, watching something on her laptop and sipping tea from the same mug I'd almost thrown away last week. She paused the video and looked up at me. "Everything okay? You were gone a while." I shrugged. Lines were too long. She blinked. "So, no groceries?" "Nope." She waited. Expected more. I gave her nothing. Just dropped the keys on the counter and walked to the bedroom. Locked the door. Laid on the bed. Listened to the house creak in discomfort. It was starting to hit her now. That something was wrong. Not broken yet, but bending. The next few days were filled with a weird kind of domestic warfare. She cooked dinner Tuesday night. Something she hadn't done in over a year. Burned the chicken. Laughed awkwardly. I didn't say anything. Just ate in silence. She tried to kiss me goodbye on Wednesday. I turned my head. Thursday night. She came to bed in the silk nightgown I bought her 3 Christmases ago, the one she said made her feel like herself again. She didn't say anything. Just slipped under the covers beside me, let her arm brush mine, and waited. I got up and slept on the couch. And still, she said nothing. But I could feel the air shifting, the cracks forming under her careful smile. The way her voice had more hesitation, like she was running out of story to stick to. Then came Friday. She got a call on speaker by accident. She forgot to disable it when answering. I was walking past the bathroom when I heard it. "So, is he out of the house yet?" It was a man's voice. Calm. Irritated. Her reply came fast. Too fast. "No, he's just being weird. Like suspicious. But he doesn't know. I've got it under control." I froze. She didn't know I was listening from the hallway, back pressed against the wall. She didn't know I was holding her used towel from the laundry, staring at the floor like it could explain how we got here. That's when it all snapped into place for me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't lost or conflicted or stuck between two lives. She was managing me, like I was an old task she hadn't finished yet. Something to be dealt with. Scheduled. Filed away. That night, I opened a blank document on my computer. I started typing. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a confession. It was a list of facts, dates, names, screenshots, numbers, times she left the house, her fake Pilates classes, the hotel charge she accidentally left in our joint credit card log. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to leave a file, one single, clean, undeniable file, and vanish. Let her explain it all when I was gone. Because the man she thought was weak? I named the file Household Budget, Final, because I knew she'd open it. It was a name that wouldn't raise suspicion, not from someone who didn't expect me to know anything. I saved it to our shared desktop, right in the folder labeled Monthly Bills between the spreadsheet for our utilities and an outdated recipe for lentil soup. She never looked in that folder. But if she did, well, I wanted her to. Inside the document was a record of everything she thought she'd buried. Time-stamped screenshots, credit card logs, the chat history from the burner phone I'd recovered, a folder of photos I'd taken of her with him, standing too close outside the Red Line bar, holding hands in the parking lot of a hotel she'd never mentioned. One image where she kissed him beside his SUV, backlit by the sunset, like she was starring in a romance film that never featured her husband. I included a single sentence at the top. No more pretending. Then I packed a bag. Not much. Just a few clothes, my passport, my laptop, and the first photo we ever took together. Not because I missed her, but because I needed to remember what a lie looks like when it's smiling. I waited until she left the house for her fake brunch with Brianna. Then I left, too. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call a friend or update my social media or check into some dramatic hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows. I just left, but I didn't go far. I parked 2 streets down, turned off my phone, and watched the house from a distance. I wanted to see the moment she realized. It took 3 hours. She came back with shopping bags, new shoes, a gift bag from some boutique she always claimed was too expensive. She unlocked the front door like she had the world in her hands. 15 minutes later, the bedroom light, turned on, then off, then back on again. She had found the file. I imagined her scrolling through it, jaw tight, face flushing, her heart skipping as she clicked through the tabs. The ugly truth snapping its claws around her carefully managed lie. And then she called me. 6 times. Voicemail every time. The texts followed. Curtis, we need to talk. Please. I saw the file. Please come home. It's not what it looks like. You don't understand. I was confused. I love you. I still do. The last one was followed by nothing for an hour. Then one more. Where are you? Just tell me you're safe. Please. That one almost got me. Almost. But I stayed quiet. Sat in my car, watching the streetlights flicker to life, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let the emptiness wash over me until it felt familiar. At 9:42 p.m., the front door opened. Delaney stepped outside, barefoot, in her robe, phone to her ear. She looked up and down the street like I'd be waiting in the shadows. Her mouth was trembling. She looked smaller than I remembered, almost scared. I didn't move. She sat down on the porch steps and just stared for 15 minutes. Then she curled up and started to cry. Big, silent tears. The kind you cry when you realize the damage isn't temporary. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel anything, really, because I knew something she hadn't realized yet. She thought she'd lost me that day, but she lost me a long time ago, the moment she looked me in the eye and said, I can't hug you anymore. Everything since then was just the aftershock. And while she cried in front of the house we used to call ours, I pulled away from the curb and disappeared into the night. Not out of revenge, not out of strength, but because even the weakest man eventually learns how to let go. I spent the first night in a motel that didn't bother with branding. One of those places where the vending machine buzzes louder than the TV, and the ice bucket has more scratches than cold. The kind of motel where people stay when they don't want to be remembered, or when they've already been forgotten. The receptionist didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and pointed at the stairs. No ID check, no signature, no name. Perfect. The room smelled like bleach and air freshener. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, not sure if I was supposed to feel free or just exposed. I kept looking at my phone, not because I wanted her to call again, but because I knew she wouldn't stop trying. And somehow, the silence after her 6th voicemail felt louder than anything she could have said. She had called my mother, apparently, my boss, even one of my old college friends I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. I know because I got the texts. Hey man, your wife's worried. Everything okay? Delaney's been trying to reach you, just checking in. You good, Curtis? She said you left without a word. Yeah, I did, because there were no words left. I spent that night trying to sleep, but couldn't. Not really. I drifted in and out of fog, jolted awake by dreams I couldn't remember. At one point, I swore I heard her laugh, but it was just a faucet dripping in the bathroom. Even that betrayed me. The next morning, I shaved for no reason, stared into a cracked mirror while my face looked back at me like I was a stranger. The kind of guy you pass on the street and never think twice about. That's when I realized no one really knows what to do after they leave. Leaving sounds clean, final, brave, but the truth is messy, eh? It's waking up in a room where no one remembers your birthday. It's eating a gas station sandwich in silence. It's realizing you missed the sound of someone brushing their teeth beside you, even if that person gutted you without a knife. I didn't want her back. That part was clear. But I couldn't stop the way her voice lived in the corners of my mind. Every time I opened my wallet and saw the coffee punch card she gave me last fall. Every time I reached for the volume knob in the car and remembered how she used to turn it down during phone calls. My body had been trained to live beside her, and now it didn't know what to do with the space she left behind. Around noon, I got an email. Not from her. From her lawyer. Noticed the subject line immediately. Preliminary separation discussion, Curtis and Delaney Worthen. I didn't open it at first. I just stared at it, that sharp, digital confirmation that the end had begun, not with yelling or slammed doors, but with headers, margins, and legal formatting. She was getting ahead of it, trying to control the narrative, probably telling everyone I'd walked out, that I was unstable, maybe even emotionally distant, that I hadn't tried hard enough, that I gave up. But she didn't know about the file I'd left, the one with evidence that didn't need anger or storytelling, just cold, time-stamped facts. I replied to the lawyer with one sentence. I'll provide documentation soon. And then I packed my bag again. I wasn't sure where I'd go. I wasn't running. I was just drifting. Like a balloon someone let go of at a backyard barbecue, floating into airspace no one tracks. I drove west. No destination. No map. Just the idea that somewhere, there had to be a version of me that didn't flinch when someone said, "I can't hug you anymore." I turned off my phone halfway through the drive. Let her wonder. Let her sit with silence for once. Because if there was one thing she hated more than being wrong, more than being caught, it was being ignored. And now she had nothing else to hold on to but the empty space I left behind. 3 weeks passed before I turned my phone back on. I was parked by a lake somewhere in northern Utah, not that it mattered. The place didn't even have a proper name. Just a stretch of water that mirrored the sky and a dock where no one ever seemed to fish. It was the quietest place I'd ever been. And I needed that. When my phone came to life, it was chaos. 36 missed calls. Over 70 texts. A few emails. Her tone changed over time, from panic, to pleading, to apology, to bitterness, and finally silence. There was one message, timestamped at 2:14 a.m., that simply read, "I get it now." I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. I wasn't, not anymore. The anger had dried up like a puddle in the sun, loud for a moment, then gone. What was left was something clearer. Still. Solid. I wasn't the same man who took out the trash and folded her laundry hoping she'd smile at me again. That man lived in the house she turned into a waiting room. I was someone else now. Not stronger, necessarily. Not better. But honest. With myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't living around someone else's needs. I was just living. I got a small cabin rental near the water. Spent the mornings walking, the afternoons sketching old trees I couldn't name, in the evenings reading books I'd pretended to enjoy back when we were still trying. I called my sister one night, someone I hadn't had a real conversation with in years. Told her everything. She didn't judge. Didn't say, "I told you so." Just said she was proud I'd finally chosen myself. That hit harder than I expected. I even started seeing a therapist online. Nothing deep at first, just slow conversations about boundaries, emotional debt, what love looks like when it's not wrapped in guilt. And then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. I met someone. Her name's Emery. She manages a plant nursery near the edge of town. I wasn't looking for anyone. I was still unraveling, still bruised in ways people couldn't see. But Emery didn't ask for anything. She just listened. She didn't ask about my past. She asked what kind of trees I liked. She laughs like she means it. One evening, we sat under a crooked elm in silence. She leaned over, placed her hand gently on mine, and said, "You don't seem broken. Just finally alone with yourself." And that's not a bad thing. That moment meant more than any apology Delaney could have offered. I don't know where Emery and I are headed. I'm not rushing it. I'm not desperate to replace what was lost. Because I've learned that healing isn't about finding someone new to fill the gap. It's about realizing you're enough, even with the gap still there. Delaney sent one final message weeks later. "I never meant to hurt you. I thought you'd never leave. But you did. And I hope you find peace." I didn't reply. She already said everything I needed to hear. And I'd already found what she never expected I would. A version of myself that didn't need her forgiveness. Only my own.